Hello there, welcome to Shine Tech's YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to go through Biology Paper 1, which was written in 2022. So question 1. Question 1 reads, a learner was walking along a road when he saw an object under a tree. When the learner touched the object, it changed color, rolled over, and divided into two. Which characteristic of living organisms has the object shown? A. Excretion, movement, nutrition. B. Growth, reproduction, sensitivity. C. Movement, reproduction, respiration. D. Movement, reproduction, and sensitivity. So, what characteristic of a living organism has the object shown? So in this question, they are saying the object, when it was touched, it changed color. So once you touch something and it reacts in a certain way, that characteristic is what we call sensitivity. Okay, that is sensitivity. It has sensed. While when it is just touched, it senses. So that is sensitivity. Then from there, it rolled over. So rolling, that is, it moved. So that characteristic is moving. It moved by rolling. Then from there, it divided into two. So dividing into two, meaning that is reproduction. It has reproduced. It has divided into two, forming two organisms. So it was one, now it is two. Why? Because it has divided. So this organism showed characteristics such as sensitivity, which is when it was touched, it changed color. Then from there, it rolled over, that is movement, and divided into two, that is reproduction. So movement, reproduction, and sensitivity. So the correct answer here is D. We move on to question 2. So question 2, which of the following correctly shows the path followed by a light beam from a mirror to a viewer of a specimen under a microscope? Which of the following correctly shows the path followed by a light beam from a mirror to a viewer of a specimen under a microscope? A. Eyepiece, specimen, objective lens, barrel. Then B. Specimen, barrel, objective lens, eyepiece. C. Specimen, eyepiece, barrel, objective lens. Then D, we have specimen, objective lens, barrel, and then eyepiece. So to answer this question, you must know the microscope and its parts. Okay, must know what a specimen is, what are the objective lens, what is the barrel, and the eyepiece. That's when you can get this question correct. Okay, so before we look at the correct answer here, let's look at this diagram here, which shows the microscope. So this is a light microscope and its part. So you can see we have the mirror here. Then from the mirror, we have the condenser. Then we have the stage where the specimen is placed. So this is where the specimen is placed on the stage. Then from there, we have the objective lens there. So these are the objective lenses there. Then from there, we are going to have a barrel. This part here is the barrel, and then we are going to have the eyepiece there, where the viewer is going to view the specimen from. Okay, so according to that question, according to our question here, so the correct path, okay, by a light beam from the mirror to the viewer of a specimen under the microscope, we are going to start from the specimen itself, okay, as we have seen here. So the viewer will start from the specimen on the stage there. Then from there, we are going, the light is going to go through the objective lenses. Then from the objective lenses, it is going to pass through the barrel, then to the eyepiece. So the eyepiece is the last part. The second last is the barrel. Okay, so the correct answer here is we have the specimen, then objective lenses, the barrel, then the eyepiece. Okay, that is the correct answer. That is the path, okay, followed by a light beam from the mirror. So it is going to pass through the specimen, then from the specimen it is going to pass through the objective lenses, then the barrel, then the eyepiece. So the correct answer is D. We move on to question 3. So question 3, a learner investigated osmosis in potato tissues. He set up the apparatus as shown. So he set up the apparatus as shown in this diagram here. So we have these potato cylinders which are hanging on the scale, and then we have these two beakers of water. So here we have distilled water, then here we have very concentrated sugar solution. So the question continues to say, at the beginning, the potato cylinders were exactly balanced. Okay, so they are saying at the beginning, these potato cylinders were balanced on that scale. He immersed the cylinders into the liquids for 4 hours. So these cylinders were immersed in these liquids for 4 hours, after which the cylinders were lifted out of the liquid. After which they were lifted out of the liquids. And then the question continues to say, cylinder P was now heavier than cylinder Q. So cylinder P here was now heavier than cylinder Q. Okay, so which statement explains what happened? Which statement explains what happened? Water moved A into cylinder P, B into cylinder P and Q, C into cylinder Q, and D out of cylinder P and Q. Okay, so let's see what is happening here. So this is distilled water. We can say it is a hypotonic solution. Then this is very concentrated sugar solution. So this is hypertonic solution. So these are the potato cylinders. They were immersed in these two liquids. Now what will happen? So if you place a potato cylinder into distilled water, which is hypotonic solution, what will happen is that water will move from the beaker there into that cylinder. That's why potato cylinder P was heavier. Why? Because there was movement of water from the beaker into the potato cylinder. Then in concentrated sugar solution, what happened is that the water was lost by that potato cylinder. Why? Because this was very concentrated, meaning water, there were low amounts of water in that solution. So water moved from the potato cylinder into the solution. So this one lost water. Okay, so here the correct answer is that water moved, okay, into cylinder P. It moved into cylinder P. That is the correct answer. Why? Because it got heavier. Okay, it got heavier. So the correct answer here is A. We move on to question 4. Question 4. 2 samples of a human enzyme were used in an experiment. Before they were used, sample X was heated to 80 degrees Celsius and cooled to 37 degrees Celsius. And sample Y was cooled to 0 degrees and then heated to 37 degrees Celsius. How did this affect the enzyme activity? How did this affect the enzyme activity? A, sample X and sample Y were no longer active. B, sample X and sample Y were equally active. C, sample X was more active than sample Y. And D, sample Y was active while sample X was inactive. Okay, so what is happening here is that the sample X was heated. So enzymes are protein in nature. So when they are heated, they will be denatured. hence they'll become inactive. But this one, Y, which was cooled to 0 degrees and then heated to 37 degrees, so it was cooled. So when you cook a protein at a certain temperature, they won't be denatured, but when you heat them, they will be inactivated. So nothing happened to Y, okay? But when it was heated to 37, it became active and it continued performing its actions, okay? So we're expecting X to be inactive and Y to be active. So the correct answer here is Y is going to be active and X was inactive, which is D. Question 5. The following table shows percentage of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in 4 samples of food. Which food sample contains the most energy? Which food sample contains the most energy? So in A, we have 59% of carbohydrates, 33% of fats, and 0.04% of proteins. Then B, we have 54, 36, and 0.8. Then C, we have 36, 26, 19. And then D, we have 30, 22, and 18. So the correct answer here is B, 54, 36, 0.8. Okay, someone may go for A, seeing carbohydrates to have 59. So what you should know here is that fats, okay, fats produce more energy in the body, 2 times more than carbohydrates, okay? But carbohydrates are preferred. Why? Because fats produce more energy, which will result in accumulation of storage of that energy in form of fat in adipose tissues, and some of it accumulates in the blood vessels, causing certain diseases. That's why fats are not preferred. But carbohydrates, they have low amount of energy as compared to fats. That's why here we are considering 36, okay? 36, because fats produce double the energy that is produced by the carbohydrates. So the change here from 59 to 54 is less as compared to the change there, which is 36 to 33 to 36. So the correct answer here is B, why fats produce more energy as compared to carbohydrates. So even when we have 59 there, that won't affect the energy which is produced in B. Why? Because fats have produces more energy as compared to carbohydrates and the proteins. So the correct answer here is B. B is the correct answer. Question 6. Question 6 reads, the following symptoms can be caused by a dietary deficiency. So these symptoms can be caused by a dietary deficiency. So we have bone pain, we have dental problems, we have fragile bones, we have skeletal deformities. Okay, so the question continues to say, which nutrient deficiency is most likely to cause these symptoms? A, iron, B, proteins, C, vitamin C, D, vitamin D. Okay, so the most likely nutrient deficiency which can cause this is vitamin D. So vitamin D is responsible for bone formation, okay, strength of the bones, okay. So vitamin D is responsible for bone, anything to do with the bones. We are talking about vitamin D. So deficiency of vitamin D is going to cause all these symptoms which are there: bone pain, dental problems, fragile bones, and skeletal deformities. Okay, deficiency of iron, we are going to have anemia, because iron is responsible for formation of hemoglobin, which is the pigment used to which transports oxygen, okay, in the red blood cells. That is iron. Then proteins, we know the protein is responsible for formation of proteins, okay. They're responsible for growth and all those stuffs. And then vitamin C is responsible for wound healing, anything to do with the wounds and even growth, okay. Also, we are talking about vitamin C. But for bones, it's vitamin D. So the correct answer for question 6 is D. Question 7. Which of the following groups of people need more carbohydrates in their diet? A, aged and young. B, lactating woman and sick person. C, pregnant woman and sportsmen. D, sick person and preschool age. So the correct answer here is pregnant woman and sportsmen. You know, sportsmen needs more energy. When you are doing sports, you need energy for the muscles to contract and relax. They need energy. Then pregnant woman as well also needs energy. Okay, differentiation of cells in the fetus. For the fetus to grow, energy is needed there for the cells to differentiate and proliferate. Okay, and also movement of blood to be pumped by the heart to the fetus, and all those stuffs need energy. Okay, but a woman, pregnant woman, needs all a balanced diet. It needs proteins, iron, vitamins, and even carbohydrates. So the correct answer here is C. Pregnant woman and sportsmen need more carbohydrates. Question 8. A plant had the following signs. A plant had the following signs: poor root growth, small reproductive organs. Which nutrient was the plant lacking? A, boron. B, copper. C, magnesium. D, phosphorus. Phosphorus. So the correct answer here is D. Phosphorus is responsible for proper root growth and reproductive organs. So if a plant is lacking phosphorus, we are going to observe more prominently poor root growth. Okay, boron, especially copper, is a core enzyme in nitrogen metabolism in plants, and then magnesium is responsible for formation of chlorophyll in a plant. Okay, but for root growth is phosphorus. The correct answer here is D. D is the correct answer. We move on to question 9. Question 9 reads, the diagram shows the internal structure of a dicotyledonous leaf. Okay, so this is a dicotyledonous leaf. Okay, so here they were asking which part is responsible for minerals and salts, transportation of minerals and salts. So the correct answer is B. The one which is responsible for conduction of minerals and salts is B here, which is the xylem and the phloem. So the xylem is going to transport water and minerals, and then the phloem is going to transport finished products. Okay, the products, foods which are being produced by the leaf are transported by the phloem. So the correct answer is B. As you can see in this diagram here, so in this structure here, which is in the same question, that's where you find the xylem and the phloem, which is responsible for transportation of finished products and even water and mineral salts to the leaf. Okay, so we move on to question 10. Question 10. Which of the following best describes saprophytic nutrition? A, feeding on dead or decaying matter. B, feeding on living organisms. C, involves intracellular digestion. D, manufacturing of food nutrients. So the correct answer here is A. Feeding on dead or decaying matter is saprophytic nutrition, where the dead matter are decayed outside the organism, and the organism only absorbs those finished nutrients. That is what we call saprophytic. And then holozoic is where now a living organism is feeding on solid, non-finished products, and then they are digested inside the body, like what is observed in most organisms. That is holozoic nutrition. But saprophytic, you are feeding on dead and decaying matter, where you absorb nutrients. We move on to question 11. Okay, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comment in the comment section concerning this video. And when you subscribe, you won't be missing any of my videos like this one. So question 11. The diagram shows a tooth with signs of decay. The diagram shows a tooth with signs of decay. So this is the diagram. It is showing a tooth. This is a tooth, and then we have a sign here of decay. What has caused the tooth to decay? A, acid; B, saliva; then B, saliva; C, sugar; and D, toothpaste. What has caused the tooth to decay is acid. Acid dissolves the enamel, and then it also destroys the dentine and reaches the pulp, and then you feel pain there. Okay, so what is happening is that the sugars which remains on the enamel when you are eating something, as the bacteria which are there in the mouth, the bacteria which are there are going to produce what we call the acid from the sugar there. So that acid which is produced by the bacteria are going to decay the tooth, causing tooth decay. So the one which is responsible is the acid, but that acid comes from the sugars, okay, by the function or the work of the bacteria. So the correct answer for question 11 is A, acid. Question 12. The table shows some of the changes that occur during breathing. Okay, so this table is just showing some of the changes that occur during breathing. We have the diaphragm. In diaphragm, okay, so from contracted to relaxed is represented by P. From relaxed to contracted represented by X. Then we have the external intercostal muscles. From contracted to relaxed is represented by Q, and then from relaxed to contracted represented by Y. Internal intercostal muscles from contracted to relaxed represented by R, then from relaxed to contracted is represented by Z. So which changes occur to cause inspiration? So which changes occur to cause inspiration in all these, the diaphragm, external intercostal muscles, and internal intercostal muscles? What happens to them during inspiration? So to answer this question, you need to understand what really happens to these structures when during inspiration. So let's first look at this diagram here so that we understand what really happened during inspiration. So during inspiration, or in a normal sense, what happens is this. So the diaphragm is dome-shaped. We know that it is like this in a normal sense. So when it is when you inhale, during inspiration, when you inhale, what will happen is that it is going to contract. It is going to contract. So when it contracts, it is going to flatten, pulling the air inside. That's what happens to the diaphragm. So the diaphragm during inspiration, it is going to contract. It is dome-shaped, but when you inspire, it is going to be flat. So it is going to contract, pulling the lips in that direction. Then from there, when you expire, it is going to do what? It is going to relax. So during inspiration, it contracts. Then from there, coming to the internal and external intercostal muscles. So the external intercostal muscles, they are going to contract. They will contract, and then they will pull the ribs upward and outward. Okay, upward and outward. So these are the external intercostal muscles here. So these are the internal. So when this one contracts, they are pulling the ribs inward. This one, when they contract, they are pulling the ribs outward and upward, like that. Okay, so during inspiration, the external intercostal muscles, they are going to contract. These ones, they are going to relax. So when these ones contract, they are going to pull the ribs outward and upward to increase the volume of the thorax. Okay, to increase the volume so that the air comes inside the chest. That's what happens. Okay, so let's go back to our question. Okay, so which changes occur to cause inspiration? So the changes which occur, we have from relaxed to contracted by the diaphragm. Okay, so it was relaxed, now it is going to contract, which is X. Then from there, the external intercostal muscles, they are going to, from relaxed to what? To contracted. Okay, they are going to contract as well. So they are moving from relaxed to contracted. Okay, so the internal intercostal muscles, them from contracted to relaxed. So we have X, Y, R. X, Y, R, which is C. So the correct answer here is C for question 12. We move on to question 13. Question 13. Which product of anaerobic respiration are important for making beer and bread? Okay, so the products of anaerobic respiration which are important for making beer and bread are ethanol and carbon dioxide. So fermentation of yeast is involved in fermentation to produce ethanol. That is anaerobic. Then from there, we also use yeast in bread to produce carbon dioxide so that the dough rises. So what causes the dough to rise is the carbon dioxide, which is produced anaerobically, okay, during that process. So it is ethanol and carbon dioxide. So the answer there is B. We move on to question 14. So question 14. In order to reduce the effect of COVID-19, people are advised to get vaccinated. What type of immunity results from this vaccination? So the type of immunity is artificial. So that is artificial passive immunity. Why? It is artificial, it is made, or the immune system which is made is artificially made is artificial. Then passive, okay, so they are not injecting the active immunoglobulins, the active immunity, but it is passive. So it is passive. Why? Because what they are injecting there, it will help the body to produce the defense against that virus. Okay, they are not injecting active, but it is passive immunity, so that the body starts producing antibodies against that virus. So the correct answer here is B. We move on to question 15. Question 15. The diagram shows a cross-section of a dicot plant stem and a dicot plant root. So we have a stem and we have a root, a cross-section of a stem and a root in a dicot plant. Which labeled regions contain xylem and vessels? So xylem vessels, okay. Which labeled regions contain xylem vessels? So in a dicot root, always know that the xylem is star-shaped. The xylem is R. Then in a stem, it is inside. It is separated by the cambium. So the cambium is going to separate the xylem from the phloem. So the phloem is outward, which is the xylem is inside, which is Q. So the Q and R are the xylem. Q and R, which is C. Question 15, the correct answer is C. Question 16. So question 16. So question 16 reads, the following is a random list of processes necessary for a wound to heal. 1. The blood clot forms a seal. 2. We have fibrin traps red blood cells. 3. We have fibrinogen is converted to fibrin. And number 4, we have new tissues form. So, in which correct order do these processes take place for the wound to heal? So, for the wound to heal, what should be formed first is the fibrin. So, we have conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. Why? Because this fibrinogen is soluble in blood. So, it has to become insoluble. So, it has to be solid. So, when it forms the fibrin, so the first thing is 3 fibrinogen is converted to fibrin, which is solid, insoluble, and then this fibrin is sticky, so it is going to trap red blood cells. Okay, it is going to trap the red blood cells. So when it traps those red blood cells, it is going to form a clot. A clot is going to form. So we have 3, 2, 1, and then when a clot is formed, that cloth is going to seal, okay? It is going to cover that opening which was made by a cut, for example, so that bleeding stops. So the bleeding is going to stop, and then new tissue is going to form. So the correct order here is 3, 2, 1, and then 4. So we have 3, 2, 1, 4. So the correct answer there is C. Question 16, correct answer is C. Question 17. Question 17. The diagram shows some body cells and a nearby capillary. So this is a capillary. And then we have these cells here. These are the body cells. Then, which substance must pass in the direction of the arrow X for the cells to respire aerobically? So which substances should pass here from the capillary to the cells for these cells to respire aerobically? So aerobically, this is where we are using oxygen, okay? When you hear aerobic respiration, we are using oxygen and glucose. So glucose and oxygen, they are going to react, produce, in the process, they are going to produce energy and carbon dioxide plus water. Okay, those are the products. But what should pass from the capillaries to the cells there is oxygen and the glucose. Okay, that's what should pass there to the cells. And then when they reach the cells, that's when aerobic respiration is going to take place. Okay, so the correct answer here is B. Move on to question 18. So question 18. The diagram shows a nephron. Okay, so this is a nephron. In the kidney, we have a nephron which is responsible in excretion for excretion, that is the release of certain toxins and waste products from the body. Okay, so this is a nephron in the kidney. So where do ultrafiltration and selective reabsorption occur? So let's see this diagram here. So we have the glomerulus here. This is where ultrafiltration takes place. We have blood which is coming from that direction, and then when it reaches the glomerulus there, ultrafiltration is going to take place. So it is like this. It is like this. Then we have red blood cells coming from this direction. So we have red blood cells. We have blood vessels coming in that direction. So what will happen is that the blood will be filtered. So we have ions which are going to be filtered, and water is going to be filtered into the glomerulus here. That is what is taking place there. And then from there, in this part here, which is the proximal convoluted tubule, we are going to have reabsorption of certain ions and glucose. Okay, so here what was filtered, okay, so in the glomerulus, in that part there, most of the ions and glucose itself is filtered from the blood into that glomerulus there. Then from there, that liquid which is filtered is going to pass to the proximal convoluted tubule. Then in the proximal convoluted tubule, that's why we have these blood vessels which are surrounding them. We are going to have reabsorption. All those essential ions which were lost in the glomerulus are reabsorbed here. Then they are taken back in the blood. Then from there, in this part here, we have what we call osmoregulation, regulation of water. Okay, especially in the collecting tubule, and in the distal convoluted tubule there we have what we call osmoregulation, maintenance of water. But reabsorption is in 2, and then 1 we have ultrafiltration. So the correct answer here, 1 is ultrafiltration, and selective reabsorption is in the proximal convoluted tubule, which is 2. We move on to question 19. So question 19, what is true for a runner at the end of a race in hot weather? What is true for a runner at the end of a race in hot weather? A, sweating and vasoconstriction. B, sweating and vasodilation. C, vasoconstriction only. D, vasodilation only. So what is true for a runner when an athlete is running? What will happen is that the body temperature is going to increase. Okay, so when the body temperature increases, the body would want to bring that body temperature to normal, which is 37 degrees, okay, to normal. So to do this, what will happen is that sweat will be produced. Sweat, which is sweating. You start sweating so that the body temperature, your body cools down. Then from there, what will happen in the skin? We are going to see vasodilation. Okay, vasodilation, which is dilation of blood vessels so that more heat is lost on the skin. So in a runner, in hot weather, we are going to see sweating and vasodilation, which is the correct answer for question 19 is B. Question 20. Question 20. Which of the following hormones stimulates growth by stimulating synthesis of macromolecules such as carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins? A, antidiuretic hormone. B, growth hormone. C, thyroid stimulating hormone. D, thyroxine. So which of the following hormones stimulate growth? It stimulates growth, okay, by stimulating synthesis of macromolecules such as carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Okay, so thyroxine is involved in metabolism. Okay, and then from there, growth hormone. Growth hormone, what it does, it stimulates growth. Okay, it stimulates growth by, it will go to the most of the parts of the body and stimulate those parts to do what? Like for example, in the bones, it is going to stimulate the bone cells to differentiate and cause the bones to elongate and the body is going to grow. Then the thyroid stimulating hormone, this one stimulates the thyroid gland to produce thyroxine. Then from there, antidiuretic hormone, these are involved in maintenance of body fluids, such as the reabsorption of water in the kidney. Okay, so the one which is stimulate synthesis of macromolecules such as carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins is the growth hormone. Okay. Okay, so the correct answer here is B. It stimulates growth by stimulating synthesis of macromolecules such as carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Now we move on to question 21. Question 21. Which of the following correctly shows examples and types of reflex actions? Which of the following correctly shows examples and types of reflex actions? So we have these reflex actions, which are the spinal reflex, cranial reflex, and conditioned reflex. So the spinal reflex is a reflex which involves the spinal cord in that part of the body. Cranial reflex, it involved the brain itself, and then we have the conditioned reflex there. So spinal reflex, it is observed in knee jerk. Okay, so in knee jerk, what happens is that we have a leg here. Okay, so what you do, you just hit on the tendon on the knee there, and you observe this leg kicking. That is what we call knee jerk. So the reflex has just sent to the spinal cord, and then the spinal cord will send the reflex to the muscle of the leg, and then the leg will kick. That is what we call a knee jerk. And then blinking, we know blinking in the eyes. Then salivating, we also know what salivating is. Okay, so in the spinal cord, as I've already said, we are observing knee jerk. Then in the cranial reflex, cranial reflex, blinking, and then in conditioned reflex. So conditioned reflex is a reflex which is learned over time. Okay, this is a reflex which is learned over time. After some time, that reflex is conditioned. It is not natural, but it is conditioned. Like for example, if you see food, then you start salivating. That is conditioned. Okay, that is conditioned. It is not a natural thing. Then, or maybe someone is just telling you a story about a very nice meal, then you start salivating. That is conditioned. So the correct answer here is C, where we have knee jerk, blinking in the cranial, and then conditioned we have salivating. Then we move on to question 22. Question 22. The diagram shows a human ear. So this is the human ear. Which of the labeled part is involved in balance? So the part which is involved in balance here is A. The semicircular canal are involved in balance. Then this is the cochlea. So the cochlea is involved in hearing. The eardrum here is involved in transmission of the sound waves from the outside here to the inner ear there via these bones which are here, which are the stapes, incus, and the miliars. Those small bones, smallest bones in the body are found here. Those bones are going to transmit that sound wave to the cochlea. Then see here, this one is involved in pressure. So it is involved in maintenance of pressure in the ear. But for balance, it is the semicircular canal, which is A. We move on to question 23. So question 23. The diagram shows, the elbow joint in two different positions. So this is the elbow joint in two different positions. What happens to muscle X and Y to change the position of the elbow joint as shown? So it was in this form. Now it is now in that form. So what happens to the muscles X and Y to cause this change from that from that position to this position? So in this position here, the tricep, this tricep here is contracted to pull this hand in that direction. This muscle here should contract, and then this Y should relax. So to move from there to here, what will happen is that now muscle Y should contract to pull this hand in that direction. Then from there, this muscle here should relax. So muscle X should relax, then muscle Y should contract. So the correct answer is C. We move on to question 24. Question 24. Which of the following correctly distinguishes a taxic response from a tropic response? Okay, which of the following correctly distinguishes a taxic response from a tropic response? A taxic response, A, involves hormones, B is a growth movement, C is a movement of whole organism, D is irreversible. So when we are looking at the GCE 2022 paper, I explained what taxic and tropic response is. So find time to watch that video as well. Okay, so tropic, this is observed in plants where we have growth movement. Only a certain part of that organism moves toward that stimulus. That is tropic. And then taxic, we are moving the whole body of that organism moves, like in insects such as cockroaches. When you switch on the light, the cockroaches are going to move away from the light. That is what we call taxic. The whole body is moving. Okay, so movement of whole body organism, that is C. The correct answer here is C. Taxic response is a movement of whole organism, like in cockroach when you switch on the light. Then question 25. Which of the following is the correct order of processes that occur during growth? So the processes that occur during growth. The correct order is cell division first, then that cell after it has divided, they are small. Okay, when the cell divide, when it was big, then it divides, they are going to form very small cells. Then these cells has to grow and elongate, so we are going to have cell elongation. Then from there, after it has grown now and it has elongated, then that cell will undergo what we call cell specialization. So cell specialization is simply formation of those specialized cells, such as the muscle cells. Okay, we form epithelial cells like the cells in the skin. That is specialization. But first, the cell has to grow bigger and elongate first after division. So cell division, cell elongation, and lastly, cell specialization is the correct order. So the correct answer is A for question 25. Question 26. The diagram shows some seedlings. So the diagram is showing some seedlings here. Which seedling shows epigia germination? Epigia germination. So we have hypogia and epigio germination here. Okay. So before we look at this question, let's first understand what epigia and hypogia means. Okay, so epi means outside or upper. That is the epi, like epidermis. That is the layer of the skin which is on top. That is epi. So in this case here, epi means outside the earth. Okay, outside the earth. Okay, epigia. So in this type of germination, we are going to see the cotyledons, those cotyledons of the seed itself also comes out with the seedling. We have the seed here, then those cotyledons also comes out of the ground when the seed is germinating. That is what we call epigia. So they are coming outside, epi, outside. Then from there, hypo means low or reduced or decreased. That is that word there, which is hypo, meaning now in this case it is under the ground, under. Okay, so in this type of germination, the seed itself it won't come out like in here. It will be there in the ground, and then what comes out is only the seedling there when it germinates, but the seed remains inside the ground. That is hypogia. But epigia, we have the cotyledon here also comes out. So I'm sure you have gotten the differences there. So in these seedlings, okay, which one is showing epigia? After I've explained that what epigia and hypogia, you must get this question correct. So epigia germination, I said epi outside the ground, so meaning the seed also comes outside, so meaning one shows epigia germination. You can see we have the roots which are remaining inside the ground, then the seedling is coming out with the cotyledon, like in this case there. So that is the epigia germination. So it is only in one. When you look at two, we only have a seedling which is growing there without the cotyledons, without the seed coming out. Then even in here, we only have the seedling which is growing. The cotyledons are remaining in the ground. So only in one here. So the correct answer is B for question 26. Question 27. The diagram shows asexual reproduction in a unicellular organism. Asexual reproduction in unicellular organism. What type of asexual reproduction is shown? Okay, so this question I also explained it in GCE 2022. So find time to look at that video. I even provided some diagrams to illustrate what the binary fission, budding, and fragmentation is. Okay. So here, what you're observing here is what we call binary fission. We have the parent plant, the parent cell there, or organism. It is undergoing a fission reaction and to produce two daughter cells there. That is binary fission. Budding, we have already grown organism, and then it forms a bud here, which falls down to produce another organism. Fragmentation is where we form fragments, okay, where it cuts itself into pieces, and then those pieces forms organisms. That is fragmentation. But in this case, this is binary fission. Binary fission. So the correct answer is A for question 27. Move on to question 28. So question 28. The diagram shows a strawberry plant. So this is a strawberry plant. Okay, so which of the parts of the plant can only reproduce can only be produced by asexual reproduction? So the part which can be reproduced asexually is D. Only D can be produced asexually without involvement of seed, without involvement of formation of a flower. You form seeds, okay? Then that seed you plant it, then that's when you form that daughter plant. That is what we call sexual. But in asexual is where now seeds are not involved, okay? So this is the only part which is formed asexually, which is vegetative reproduction. That is D. The correct answer for question 28 is D. So this is observed in runners, like in plants like the sweet potato plants. That is what happens. Okay. Question 29. Which process occurs in the carpel of a plant? Which process occurs in the carpel of a plant? So to answer this question, we must know what a carpel is. What carpel is. So a carpel in a flowering plant. So let's see here. So the female part there is the carpel, which involves the stigma, the style, and the ovary. So the style is this stalk which is holding the stigma. That is the style. And then the ovary is where now we have the ovum or the ovum. Okay, that all those three parts are what we call the carpel, the female part. And then the stamen is the male part. Okay, so we have now known what a carpel is, which is the female part. So which process occurs in the female part, which is the carpel? So what happens in the female part? So A, they are saying attracting insects and pollination. So what attracts the insect is the colored part, that part of the flower. Okay, the bright part, that one which is of the flower. The petals are the ones which attracts the insects and pollination. Then B, we have fertilization and producing of pollen. So pollen is produced in the male part by the anther there in the male part, not in the female. Then from there we have fertilization and producing of pollen is wrong. Pollination and fruit formation. Okay, so pollination, we know that pollination is simply the movement of the pollen grain from the male to the female there on the stigma. That is pollination. And then from there, that pollen is going to form a tube, pollen tube, and then it will go in the ovum there, causing fertilization. That is pollination. So pollination is also involved. The female part is involved during pollination. Okay, then from there, fruit formation here. So fruits are formed here, are formed by this part of the by the ovaries there, where inside we have the ovum. That's where the fruit, that part forms the fruit. Okay, so this can qualify to be the answer. Pollination and the fruit formation. Let's see D. Releasing pollen and fertilization. Fertilization takes in the female, yes, but pollen is released by the male part. Take note of that. Pollen, releasing pollen. So the pollen grains are produced by the male part, and they are also released from the male part to the female part there. The female part do not produce pollens. Okay, so the correct answer here is the pollination and the formation of fruit. Fruit formation is there, and pollination also, movement of there to the female there. Okay, then from there we are going to form a tube. So page 9 is C. We move on to question 30. Question 30. The following process occur during reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, so this is what occurs during reproduction In flowering plants, we have fertilization, growth of pollen tubes, we have pollination, and then seed formation. In which order do these processes occur? So in which order do these processes occur? Okay, so before we answer this question, let's look at this diagram here. So this is the stigma, as we already saw in the first diagram. So on the stigma there, the pollen grain is going to come there during pollination. So pollination will start, which will bring the pollen grain there. And then from there, the pollen grain is going to form a tube there, which is called the pollen tube, so that sperm from the male part can move from there to this part where the egg or the ovum is, so that fertilization takes place. So what happens first is pollination, then from there formation of pollen tube, then fertilization inside there. That's what happens. Okay, so the order is pollination followed by growth of pollen tube, that tube, and then from there fertilization, then seed formation. So we have 3, 2, 1, and 4. The correct answer is C. We move on to 31. Question 31. A frog becomes an adult when it has all the 4 legs and its tail disappear. So the correct answer is A. The frog becomes an adult when it has all the 4 legs and its tail disappears. That is an adult frog. Correct answer A. 32. The diagram shows 4 methods of birth control. Okay, which one is placed in the uterus? So these are contraceptives. We have the condoms here. So these ones, the IUD, these are the ones which are placed in the uterus to prevent for birth control. These ones are produced in the uterus. So the correct answer is D. Is B. B is the correct answer here. So we move on to question 33. Question 33. What makes tongue rolling an example of discontinuous variation? Discontinuous variation. A person can either roll a tongue or cannot. B, a person can roll a tongue only when he or she is young. C, there are many different types of tongue rollers. Then D, we have tongue rolling has to be learned. So tongue rolling is genetic. You are born with it. Either you can roll your tongue or you can't. Okay, so a person can roll a tongue or cannot. So that is discontinuous variation. More or less like sex, you can be a male or a female. So that is discontinuous. So where a continuous, where we have continuous, is in a situation where you can, you can't, or you can. Okay, continuous variation like height. Okay, height. Yeah, we have that is discontinuous. Continuous. Discontinuous is you are genetically like born with that thing. Okay, it's either you can or you can't. So in a tongue rollers, it's either you can roll your tongue or you can't. So the correct answer here is A. Then question 34. Question 34, the diagram shows one of the stages in mitosis. So this is one of the stages in mitosis. Which of the following stages of mitosis is shown in the diagram? A, anaphase, B, metaphase, C, prophase, D, telophase. So this is anaphase. Okay, in metaphase, what we are going to see is that we are going to have the same. Then we have the chromosomes there. Then these chromosomes are just attached to these what we call the spindle fibers. Okay, so we have the spindle fibers attaching to the chromosomes, which are aligned on the center there. They are just attached. That is the metaphase. Then when they separate now, when they separate, like in this case, that is anaphase. Then in the prophase stage, we are just going to observe these chromosomes enlarging, condensing, becoming larger and be able to be viewed under the microscope. That is the prophase. And we also have formation of those spindles, that is under prophase stage. Then under the process, which is telophase, we have everything has divided. Now the cells, the cytoplasm is divided. That is under telophase. But under anaphase, we have now the complete separation of the chromosomes there inside the cell. That is anaphase. So the correct answer here is A. In this diagram is anaphase. Metaphase, they are just arranged and they are attached, but they haven't yet separated. That is metaphase. Anaphase, they have separated in that case. We move on to question 35. Question 35. In which phylum do algae belong? In which phylum do algae belong? A. Bryophyta, B. Chlorophyta, C. Pteridophyta, and D. we have Spermatophyta. Okay, so where algae belongs is in the Chlorophyta. So algae has chlorophyll and it produces its own food. So the correct answer is B. Bryophyta, those we find what we call mosses. Mosses is in Bryophyta. Like in this diagram here, this is what you see on trees, on damp trees. Those green-like structure are what we call the mosses, and they are in the phylum Bryophyta. So these are the classes in which all green plants, the protista plant has been divided. So these plants like these ones which you are seeing in this diagram here are observed. These ones here are under that class, which is Bryophyta. An example is mosses. Then Chlorophyta is algae. Algae is of different type, but we have green algae, which is under that phylum or that class of plants, which is Chlorophyta. And then we have this Pteridophyta. So algae is in this diagram here, that is in damp places like in water. You are going to find algae in water. There, that's where algae is, mostly in stagnant water. Those green structures or green organisms you see, that is algae. Then from there I have this one, which is Pteridophyta. So Pteridophyta are going to find example of plants like ferns. So Pteridophyta, the word pterido, this one comes from pteron, which means feather. Okay, so feather, like feathers. So those plants which are found in there, like ferns, their structure is like a feather. Okay, as you can see here, these are the Pteridophyta plants, these ones here. That is those are the plants which fall in that phylum. Then the Spermatophyta, these are all the plants that produces flowers. All those plants which produces flowers, most of these plants, you know them, those are under the class Spermatophyta. So this is how they have classified all the plants. The kingdom Plantae has been classified in this. But the algae, this one which has been asked in this question, is under the phylum Chlorophyta. Don't forget that. Okay, so we move on to question 36. Question 36. So don't forget to like if at all you like the video, and subscribe. You leave your comment also in the comment section. So question 36. The diagram shows an experiment set up to compare porosity of two types of soils. Okay, so this diagram here is just showing, okay, an experiment to compare porosity of two types of soils. So the soil has been placed in there, and then water has been poured in that direction. Okay, so let's continue reading the question. After 10 minutes, the results showed that different volumes of water were collected in the two measuring cylinder. Okay, so different volumes of water were collected in those two measuring cylinder. So the conclusion was that soil A had low porosity because it was clay soil. So A had the porosity because it was the sand soil, and then soil B had the high porosity because it was clay soil, and soil B had high porosity because it was the sand soil. So this word porosity, this word means the pores which are formed by those particles. So we have sand soil, they are bigger in size like this. Okay, so those particles of sand soil, they are very large in size. Now those spaces they are forming there, that is what we call porosity. Okay, so since they are big in size, the spaces which they are formed, the pores which they form, are also big. Hence we are going to observe that the water being poured here is going to be permeable. It is going to drain. More drainage of water will be observed. Why? Because the particles form big pores where water can pass. So we are going to observe more water in here. Why? Because it is sand and it is more porous. So correct answer here is D. So B, this soil B, had high porosity because it was a sand soil. We move on to question 37. Question 37 reads, which of the following lists of components of the ecosystem forms the abiotic component? So abiotic are non-living things, or the non-living things are abiotic. Then biotic are living things. So in this case here, the correct answer is water, sunlight, and air are abiotic. Water lily is a living thing. Fish, they are living things. Then question 38. So the correct answer for question 37 is D. Water, sunlight, and air are abiotic components. And then question 38. The diagram shows an ecological pyramid. So this pyramid here. And then from there, they are saying which of the levels shows primary consumers. So the primary consumers are rabbits. Okay, so grass form their own food. They don't consume food produced by other organisms, but they form their own food by the process called photosynthesis. Now that food which has been produced by the plants, they are consumed primary. That is the first class of consumers. That is the rabbits. They feed on grass. So the correct answer there is C. Question 39. The diagram shows part of the nitrogen cycle. So this diagram is showing part of the nitrogen cycle. Then which stage depends on nitrifying bacteria? So nitrifying bacteria, they convert the smallest molecules of nitrogen to nitrate, which is ammonia. So they convert ammonia to nitrate. Those are nitrifying bacteria. So the correct answer is C. Question 40. An adaptive feature of an organism is defined as one that helps the organism to A. Change, B. Disperse to new habitats, C. Grow, then D. Survive and reproduce. So the correct answer here is survive and reproduce. An adaptive feature. So to adapt is you adapt for you to survive and be able to reproduce. So the correct answer there is D. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, okay, and subscribe. So remember, when you subscribe, you help me continue making this kind of videos. And leave your comment concerning this video in the comment section below.